everyone. Welcome to the Hard Rim. I'm Travis Bruce, and today I have a returning guest. He is an author, and he has a new book out right now, and it's called Alpha Male. Welcome back, Mark Allen.
Hey, hi Travis. How you
Mark,
doing?
welcome back. Good, man. Welcome back. By the way, I love that book cover. Who was the artist who did that book cover for you?
I found that online and I tracked down the copyright holder. I paid a one-time licensing fee of like $35 for it.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
So no AI on your part, right?
Oh, good God, no. No, 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 no. No. Absolutely not. I if I hire an artist
Mhm,
to do something and they use a program that's like AI enhanced or has some AI in it, that's one thing, you
mhm.
know. But to just go in and create something out of whole cloth without the use of human artistry, no, I'm not interested in doing anything like that.
And I'm glad because it seems like that's the way. I was doing another interview, and that seems like a way that a lot of people are going. Which, listen, it
I
is.
think
I
it's a
mean,
bandwagon right now.
it is.
I think that it's going to recede a little bit as time goes on. I think it's going to recede and it's just going to be another tool in an artist's toolkit,
Hmm.
but it's not necessarily going to be the right tool for every single little thing. Just like with CGI in movies, we've seen when it first came around, everybody was using it for everything,
Hmm.
and we've seen them pull back, especially in horror and in lower budget sci-fi.
Thank God.
And they're going back to practical effects and miniatures and, you know, rear screen projection and, the ways our grandparents, our great-grandparents would have made movies in Hollywood. So, I think eventually it's all gonna find its proper place, and I think the furor that we see now is eventually gonna settle out. The dust is gonna settle.
I hope you're right, Mark. I hope you're
Well, I hope I am too.
right. Now, Mark, tell everyone a little bit about Alpha Male.
Well, Alpha Male is the second novel in my werewolf trilogy. I'm writing 3 books to tell one long overarching story about this werewolf, Caleb Jacobson, who is continually uh, at war within himself over um, the morality of what he is and what he does. Um, I don't have any of that Lawrence Talbot, Lon Chaney Jr. angst. There's none of that.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, Caleb is what he is, and he knows it. He's accepted it, but it's like he says in the first book. It's not about how we're born. It's what we do with what we're given that defines who and what we are. And I think that's not only true of the werewolves in my completely fictional story, folks. Werewolves are not real.
Yes.
Um, but I think that carries over into life in a lot of ways. You see people who are born in abject poverty and grow up to be multimillionaires, become incredibly successful. Um, we see a lot of people born to wealth and privilege who take advantage of it. They take without giving anything back, and they wind up squandering it. And in some cases, they wind up losing it.
Hmm.
So it's the decisions that we make, and I'm sure this is true of women too, because we're all people, but I've only been a man all my life, so I can only
Okay.
speak as a man. Um, you know, the decisions I make are always guided by what is good, what is right, what is moral. Is this in line with the teachings of my parents, who I feel did a really good job of raising me? And is this in line with who I want to be? Because I'm always striving to be a good man. I'm not always a nice guy, and I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not always a nice guy, but I'm always trying to be a good man. And that's the same thing that Caleb deals with all the time. Plus, he's got all these other outside forces that are constantly just clashing and just crashing against him and becoming an existential threat both to him and to the people that he loves. So when he's had enough and he says, okay, you want it, you just fucking got it. When he does that, he's doing it to protect the people that he loves and to defend the morals that he stands for. He is truly he is living or dying by his own moral code. So,
That-
and I'm writing the third book now, which will end the Caleb Jacobson saga. There will not be a fourth book. The third one is it. It will complete one long overarching story that I've been telling across all three books. And I must say I'm really happy. I'm going to let your audience know that as of just yesterday, it's official now. I knew on Friday, but I didn't announce it until a little bit later, that Alpha Male won its category at the International Book Fest Awards.
I
And
saw. I
thank you.
saw. Congratulations.
Thank you. Now both of the books, Blood Red Moon, which came out in 2021, and this one, Alpha Male, which came out this year in 2025, have both won their categories at Bookfest. So
That's an amazing feeling. It
yeah,
has to be amazing.
well, now the pressure's really on, because when I have the third book ready, I'm going to put that one in too, and I'm going to be damned embarrassed if it doesn't win something. I'm gonna. Yeah.
I can imagine that. Now, Mark, I have actually a question. As an author, is it a learned skill, or is it something you had to learn over time to mm, to create characters that are relatable to the audience, and also put them in situations that also the audience can relate to?
Yes. It took a lot of time, and most of that I learned when I was working in the film industry as a screenwriter. Because I was very active in the business. I knew and still know a lot of producers, a lot of screenwriters, a lot of directors. Some of them, micro budget indies. Some of them, working all the way up at the studio level. And it may not seem it when you look at what's out there in the theaters now, and what's been coming out the last few years, but they all talk about story, 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 story. And, the great thing about heroes is you can't have your hero be too perfect.
Mhm.
They have to have something to overcome, not just from the outside world, but from within themselves. So give them flaws. Give them the warts and all. Give them something that they have to wrestle with themselves. It could be a cop with a volatile temper. It could be an attorney who in the past has perhaps played fast and loose with legal ethics, but they're having to come back around to something where they have to address those past sins while straightening up their shoulders and saying, from this point forward, I'm going to do what I know is right. And no matter what the consequences, this is what I'm doing. People can relate to that. People, you have to make that character flawed so that they are relatable. And certainly Caleb is flawed. And his flaws become deeper as the books go on. In the third book, Caleb is getting even more deeply flawed because he's dealing with the constant, unrelenting pressure of being in charge of everything. He is the alpha male. He controls millions, tens of millions of werewolves all over the world. And in this one, he has to deal with politics, and not just politics within the global pack. He's dealing with, United States senators. He's dealing with the president of the United States. He's dealing with, people that run the World Bank and stuff like this. And he just absolutely hates this, hates it. He never wanted to be alpha to begin with. And anyone who's read the first two books understand this, and they understand why. But now that he's stuck with this, the pressure is unrelenting, and there are cracks are appearing in the dam, and he's not a happy person.
Because the term alpha has been, in society has been tossed around and has been meant to be something else. It's meant to be the tough guy, mean guy, asshole, loudmouth, blah, blah. But a true alpha male is someone who leads by example, who has people who follow him, who has people he's responsible for. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between an alpha and a beta.
There's been so much misuse and misappropriation of the term alpha male. And you're right. Everyone seems to think it's the guy that storms in and he's all loud and belligerent and getting in people's faces. I'm in charge here. Rah, 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 rah. That's not an alpha male. That's an asshole. That's what that is. I studied both in books and in nature videos, wolves in the wild, because I wanted to put real wolf behavior in the novels, and I wanted to use the dynamics of a real wolf pack and how they interact with each other, and you're quite right. A true alpha male is protective. He's nurturing. He is supportive. He looks after the young. He'll look after the very old. Even when he leaves the pack to go patrol the territory, why does he leave the pack? To protect them, to make sure there's nothing coming into their territory that is a threat to their existence. They always greet each other when one's been gone for a while. They greet each other with what passes for them as great affection. So, they sniff each other, they'll rub each other's cheeks, and they'll lick each other's faces, they'll lick their ears. This is how they say, I've missed you and I'm glad to be back. I just wrote a thing in Caleb's Reign, and I'm not giving anything away here, But after a certain thing has been taken care of, Marla, who is the alpha female, she is um, Caleb's wife now. They get married in the second book. Uh, or no, they're not married yet, but they're going to be. But when they get something done, and when it's done, she pads over to him, and they're both still in werewolf form, right? And she walks over to him, and of course he's towering over her because he's 8 feet tall and she's about 6.5. And um, she starts rubbing her cheek against his shoulder, like a real wolf would to show affection. So she's rubbing her cheek against him, and he turns to her and he puts his head down so he can reach her, and he rubs back, and she turns and starts nuzzling his chest, and he envelops her in his arms, pulls her gently forward, and he starts licking the top of her head and licking, just at the tops of her ears.
Mhm.
And again, this is real wolf behavior, and that shows you just how connected they really are. They are a true alpha pair. Whenever you get one, you get the other. They're a package deal.
Now, why do you feel like? Because honestly, I love a good werewolf story, but there hasn't been that many out there in the last 10, 15 years. Why do you feel like filmmakers and even some authors miss the cue when it comes to making a good werewolf story?
I think there's a couple of things going on. From a story point of view, a lot of these, a lot of the novels, at least ones that I've read, with a few notable exceptions, but a lot of them have the werewolf as a boogeyman. He is the representation of evil. He is the outside force that is disrupting the peace and the normalcy of a small town, a logging community, um, an isolated farm that someone just bought for dirt cheap, that kind of thing. And there's not a lot of time spent seeing things from the werewolf's point of view. Why does he do what he does?
Hmm.
And who is he? There are questions about background and backstory that need to be answered, and they're not. Uh, in film, in film, a lot of exposition and backstory has to go right out the window. Because film is a visual medium, so you have to show it, not tell it. And I understand that, but again, um, they're not fully fleshed out characters. They are simply caricatures of evil, and on that, I blame the screenwriter. Uh, Another aspect in the films is that it's like they may not have much story, they may not have much plot, but they think that if they throw a high enough body count at people, and if they have enough blood and gore, that it will cover up the fact that they don't have a fucking story.
Yeah.
And um, that's lazy filmmaking. And I believe it's a bit disingenuous. The people involved are over promising and under delivering. I hear it all the time. Uh, oh, well, if you don't tell them why they do it, if you don't explain the motivation, it makes it more scary. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. That's that's just bad writing and
Hmm.
lazy filmmaking.
I agree.
You've got to build. You can't take a setup, a plot setup, and then just insert characters into it. You have to start with characters and develop them out, know who they are, and then you build a plot around them. That's how I work. And, you know, I've written 4 novels. Three of them have been award winners. 4 of them have been Amazon bestsellers. All I can say, I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but I must be doing something right.
I agree.
People are connecting with the work. So I'm doing something right. Whatever
I
it
agree.
is, I'm doing it right. And my thing is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing and just attempt to replicate that formula for success.
I agree. And I feel like when it comes to horror, there's a time and there's a place for splatterpunk and just over the body horror, grotesque. There's audience for that, but I
There's an
don't feel like
audience for it, and as long as you've got a message, as long as you've got a
yes,
theme, as long as you have a point to make and a story to tell, uh, body horror is not always my thing, but if it's
I,
done really well, I really enjoy it.
yes,
And splatter gore, maybe I'm dating myself because I'm an old guy, but splatter gore with no plot, no story, no theme, just it just bores me. I just get bored.
I 100% agree. And even and when it comes to actual horror films, the ones that have no, like you were talking about, even the villain. I like a villain. Some of my favorite horror villains have great backstories, and I I kind of relate. I'm not trying to relate to them when I'm killing people, but I understand where they come from. Some of the best horror villains, whether it be in books or in films, have amazing backstories. You know something about them,
Hmm.
and but you can't just toss a killer out there with a mask on and he's just killing people and you don't give anybody the idea on who this killer is and why he's doing it.
That's and I may get hate mail for this, but that's one of the things that I absolutely loved about the director's cut of Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween. Half the movie is backstory and
Hmm.
exposition about Michael Myers as a child,
Hmm.
not understanding what he knows something's wrong, but he doesn't understand what it is, but it builds and builds and builds. And then, there's the big breakout where he's, you know, killing everybody and going through, and then he goes home and finds the mask and all that. The theatrical release was just god awful. It was just god awful. But the director's cut made sense. And it was a textbook. If you've There's a wonderful book that I read as research for one of my novels called Just Before Dawn. And it's called The Psychopath Whisperer. And it's a nonfiction book written by the guy who literally wrote the book on how to diagnose psychopathy in humans. And it was his life work. He didn't write this book until he was like in his 70s. And he started working with psychopaths when he was in his 20s. And it was the focus of his entire psychiatric career. And after reading that book and then watching the Rob Zombie's director's cut of Halloween, Michael Myers is a textbook example. No empathy for others, no fear for his own life, um, no impulse control, um, violence against small animals and pets. I mean, the very first scene, he's killing one of his pet rats with a scalpel,
Yeah,
and all around his neighborhood are missing pet notifications for cats and small dogs and stuff. And that's to give the idea. He's already killing things. He just hasn't graduated to humans yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which he does. You know, his first kill is the bully that tormented him in school. You know,
Yeah.
he beats him to death with a tree branch.
Mm-hmm.
And then that same night he goes home and, you know, kills the mother's boyfriend, who was a complete waste of skin anyway. He kills his older sister, her boyfriend. You know, it's just a slaughter mill. And but yeah, that movie is a textbook um, case of how a psychopath grows up to become a serial killer.
I 100% agree. And so I'm in the same agreement with you. When it comes to that movie, it's the first half of the movie I enjoyed because it was the first time a filmmaker broke down on who Michael Myers was, how he became
Yeah.
Michael Myers. The second half of the film, I could have did without. It seemed like it was rushed and it was sloppy, when it comes to him actually as an adult breaking out and killing people. But I love the first half of that movie because it was something that no one has ever done. I don't think any filmmaker has really done when it comes to a horror villain, and that's showing you the early stages, how before I got into the funeral industry, my goal when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a criminal profiler. So I read throughout, my life as a teenager, my young life, autobiographies on serial killers, and so I know I'm a serial killer encyclopedia, and like nobody just wakes up a serial killer. No one
They're
wakes up.
born.
There's certain steps. There's certain steps you have to life experience. It graduates, but yes, you're born. But then certain perfect scenarios have to happen for you to get to that point.
Oh, that's the thing about this book, The Psychopath Whisperer. You know, they did, not only interviewing convicted killers in prison and stuff, but they did all kinds of medical tests. They looked for blood work, urine, I mean everything, to try to find something different. But what they did, what really opened the research up, was when they started doing CT scans of their brains. And at the time, CT was brand new. It was cutting edge technology. And what they found was that there were visible, a grossly visible um, aberrations, differences in the patient's, in the psychopath's limbic system. There was differences in their hindbrain. Their amygdalas were overgrown, quite literally. There were other parts of their brain that were underdeveloped, and some of the neural pathways that develop before we even have skin, right? Some of the neural pathways in the brain, because the brain is the first organ that gets developed in a developing fetus. Some of those neural pathways in the brain are just not there. The electrical impulses in a psychopath's brain simply fires differently from the rest of us. And it's a fascinating book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it highly. With your interest in it, you'll
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
really enjoy it. It's called The Psychopath Whisperer. I can't remember who wrote it, but the guy's a PhD and, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, yeah, I had to do research because I had a serial killer in another novel. And I like to approach my stuff differently. We've talked about this before. Um, this is a fully fleshed out character. My vampire in my Nocturnal series, he's a fully fleshed out character. He's not just he's not running around in a cape wooing women with a Hungarian accent. He's not doing any of that. And I approach them as real people, and then I give them villains that are I give them villains that are truly strong, because your hero is only as good as your villain.
I agree.
And your conflict, your story conflict, and the rising tension in the second act, that's only as good as the villain, not the hero, the villain. Because what does a hero do? A hero has nothing to do until he or she encounters a villain and comes to realize that their wants and goals are running loggerheads into the villain's wants and goals. Then you've got drama, then you've got tension, then you've got conflict, then you have a story to tell.
Yes.
Until that happens, you've got nothing. The hero is just, whatever they are, the cop, the legal eagle, the soldier, or whoever they are. It's like Caleb, when you first meet him in Blood Red Moon, he's a history professor at a small, obscure community college in northwestern Washington State. And that's it. He's been doing it for years. And he's happy, he's contented. And it's not until he gets pulled into this police investigation that he doesn't ask about this. This is circumstances beyond his control. But he gets pulled into it, and then he starts to realize that the culprits, the murderers that have been leaving these mangled bodies all over the Puget Sound, are actually werewolves. And that's where the story truly begins. This is why a lot of my stories, not all of them, but a lot of them, you actually meet the villain before you meet the hero.
But that's something like one of my favorite not horror movies, but one of my favorite movies is Heat. With Robert De Niro and Al Pacino.
Marvelous movie. Yeah.
And like, because you're rooting for the villains as well as the good guys. Like, you want to see everybody win, and which is impossible. But you relate and you see, okay, these villains could easily be good guys, but they just went down this path.
Yeah, and that's something that I had actually mentioned to my wife at one point with Heat, because I agree it's one of the best modern gangster movies out there. These guys could have been anything.
Mm-hmm.
They were smart, they were intelligent, they were well educated, they were very creative, they were innovative. They could have done anything in their lives, and they would have probably been successful. But they chose the dark path. They chose that. And yeah, in the end, it gets most of them killed. If I remember right, the only one who actually gets away, and he doesn't get away clean, he simply gets away with his life, is Val Kilmer.
Yep.
But he has to give up his son and his wife in the process.
Yep.
Now, I have a feeling that at some point in the future, later on, those two reconnected somewhere, somehow, because they, despite their faults, and they had really, really deep flaws, they truly loved each other. And I think at one point they would have gotten back together. But the De Niro character, he was so vindictive. He had won.
He had a
He
way
had
out.
gotten away.
Yep.
And he was getting away with a pretty young chickadee, and they were on their way to like New Zealand or something like that.
Mm-hmm. They were at the airport.
Yeah, and of course he had all the money because he'd been smart with the money that they'd stolen over the years. He didn't burn through it like a couple of the other characters did. He had all this money, and she found out what he was, and she still chose to go with him. All he had to do was keep driving to the airport. But his anger, his rage, and his deep-seated need for vengeance proved to be his undoing.
Hmm.
Because if he had not gone to that airport hotel, if he had not killed that despicable character that he killed from earlier in the film, Pacino never would have caught up with him
Yep.
because he had it. He was out. He was gone.
Yep.
And that feeds back into a common theme in all of my work, which is actions have consequences. Our choices have consequences. And taking no action is itself an action. You know, uh, I've run into this as a writer when I was chasing agents and publishers and producers and agents in the film industry and everything. You know, you send out these queries and this and that. You send out your projects and all this, and then they ghost you. You never hear back. But no, especially in the film business, because they never want to look you in the eye and tell you no. They just they can't do that for some reason. Um, you just never hear anything back. But no answer is an answer, and the answer is no.
Yeah.
When I'd send out like a cold query to a producer or someone I didn't know, I would send the query letter out, no attachments, just the body of the letter. And I would give it 30 to 45 days, 4 to 6 weeks, because I know these people are busy. And if I didn't hear from them from then, I assumed the answer was no. I crossed them off my list and I moved on. And I did not take it personal.
You can't.
You can't. You can't. One of the things, if you're going to be a creative, you have to grow a thick skin.
You really do. And I would tell anybody who's starting a YouTube channel, the shit is hard and the shit is ruthless. And yeah, you gotta have a thick skin to do anything. You gotta do anything where there's an audience that's just going to see you like, love, reject. I mean, it's tough. So I mean, and you got to stick with it.
Yeah. 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 You really have to stick with it. Tenacity. It's like the old saying, a professional is simply an amateur who never gave up. You know,
That is true. That is
you
true.
know, but
Now,
no, I retired from the film industry at the beginning of this year. I was just done for a whole lot of reasons. My my manager and I were not seeing eye to eye on how to go out and find money for the projects and everything. And she kept wanting to do the same thing over and over, year after year after year, that had gotten us bupkis, you know. And I kept saying, well, let's change our approach. Let's do some of this and some of that, and let me be more involved because I know people on my own, and and she was not receptive of that. And the reason being, I was looking at people. I knew people who were making movies, you know, 500K, a million, you know, somewhere in there, maybe 1.5 million if they were lucky. But and I just wanted to get my fucking screenplays made, you know?
yeah,
And if I was only going to get a 10, $15,000 check, I was fine with that. I didn't care. It was about keeping the thing going.
hmm,
And if a lower budget thing hit, then it would give me cachet for something bigger the next time around. And she just would not hear of it. She wanted to do my pictures at the lower end, somewhere between 2 and 4 million. At the upper end, we had one thing in particular that we wanted to do, that because of who we wanted in it, and because the special effects were gonna be quite extensive, um, that was budgeted at around 5 to 7 million. And, she had an inside track to a truly a major distributor to get it, a limited domestic run, before it went to streaming and all that. And that's how she wanted to go, and she just would not consider anything else. And I was seeing horror movies that were similar to mine that were just god awful. And I'm like, we can't get our stuff set up, but this is getting greenlit. What the hell?
Yeah.
And eventually I just came to a breaking point late 2024 after my last film Restitution came out, and it came out great. I love that movie. Truly the high mark of my career is Restitution. And I said, you know what? Go quit while you're ahead. Go out like a champion. If this last victory is the biggest one of my career, that's the cherry on top. I'm going to move over to writing, which was making me more money anyway. And the novels were making me more money, and I enjoyed them more. And I said, I'm just going to go do this. I'm 64 years old. And earlier this year, I survived a fucking stroke.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've cheated death so many times in my life, and in my military career, certainly. But there was my military career, living long enough to retire. Then there was the cancer and beating that. Now I've had a stroke and I've beat that. And it's like, you can only cheat death so many times. And cheating death is like walking into a casino. The house holds all the cards, and sooner or later, the house always wins. And I don't know how many more cheats I have left in me. So I want to do with the remainder of my life, and I know this is going to sound so, I don't know, but it's true. I want to do for the remainder of my life, however long that is, doing something that is meaningful to me. And that means writing these. Because in that, I'm still telling my stories. I still write them in the 3-act structure. The difference is I'm the writer, I'm the director, I'm the producer, I'm all of the actors. I'm the special effects guy, I'm the makeup guy, I'm the lighting director, I'm the cinematographer, I'm the electrician. I'm the intern bringing the coffee to the director. When I write a book, I'm everything. And the way I look at it, I'm trying to write a book that will play like a movie in my readers' heads. I'm just, instead of having the motion picture be 24 frames a second to simulate motion, instead of those frames being celluloid, I'm painting them with words, But that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm taking my stories, I'm telling them the way I want to. No one tells me what I can and cannot write. No one tells me, "Oh, Mark, you've gone too far. That's not commercial. That won't play well in Thailand. No, don't, no. I don't get any of that. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to take a lot of the screenplays that I never sold that are still good stories and have something to say. And I'm going to use the screenplays as very detailed outlines. And I'm going to novelize them. I'm going to treat the screenplay as if it is the skeleton, the framework for the story, which it is actually what a screenplay is. It's a framework for a movie. And I'm just going to take it and I'm just going to flesh it in with words so that it plays like a movie in my readers' heads. It's just instead of a DVD, they're going to be holding a novel.
And that's what a great author does. Because it's a movie that you're reading and it gives you those descriptors. But that's why I love your writing. And I have, and by the way, I have Alpha Male. It's next on my list to read. Because and I love having you on. I love having you on because, by the way, we ramble and we talk forever. I could talk to you all day, but you're one of the authors out there that like when I read your book, it was like I was watching a movie in my head.
Then I did my job.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That tells me that I did my job.
Yes. I could smell everything. I could see everything. It was just like I was there, and that's why I can't wait to read Alpha Male. Now, listen, Mark, where can everyone find you, my friend?
If you're looking for me, I am all over social media except for X. X banned me. They said that I was spamming people and that I was manipulating the platform.
Yeah, fuck X. I don't use X here, so don't worry about it.
Well, anyway, they banned me, but you know, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on a small, more obscure site called Slasher.
I know
And
Flash.
it's sort of like Facebook, but strictly for horror guys and gals.
Yep.
I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads, I'm on Blue Sky, and I'm on Facebook. I have both a personal profile and I have a professional page on Facebook. So I'm all over the place. My novels, I publish exclusively through Amazon's KDP. So I'm exclusively available through Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and Kindle Unlimited.
And shout out to Kindle Unlimited. That's where I read all my books.
I love Kindle Unlimited.
I really do. I really do.
I kid you not. Every single month, because I see all my demographic breakdowns on my little dashboard for authors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And every single month, somewhere between 60 and 70% of my royalties come from Kindle Unlimited. Let's say it's like 60%, just to make it easy. Another 30 to 35% comes from Kindle downloads. Only about 5 or 10% is actually paperback novels. It's the reading habits of the younger audience these days. You know, me, I want to hold a book in my hands, but that's just me. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old guy. I'm stuck. I'm set in my ways, and I'm fine with that. But I realize that a lot of people read their books on their laptops. They read it on their tablets. They read it on their phones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. However, whatever device they use to read my work is fine by me. That doesn't matter to me so much as that they are reading.
Yes.
And I'm glad they're reading me because it means I'm building my audience and all that. But I just want them to read because literacy in this country is declining.
Big time.
And that's a very scary thing. There's so many other things going on that get all the press and the attention. They suck all the oxygen out of the room. But the fact is, education is declining, literacy is declining. And I don't have the statistics right off the top of my head, but I know that like something like 50 something percent of college graduates never read another book unless it is something that is work related. But to like go home and read a novel or to read a biography of like John Quincy Adams or something,
Mm-hmm.
over 50% of them don't do that.
Yeah,
What the hell? You're supposed to be educated. You're
I
supposed
agree.
to have a thirst for knowledge. What the hell? It gets even bigger for like the community college. It's up in the 60s, like 65%. Never read
Imagine,
anything else after they're done.
I'm gonna say, imagine if for the high school, the ones
High
for the high
school
school.
is like 72%. Never read
Yeah.
another word unless it's related to their job or a training course or something like that. But to sit down and read for pleasure in the evening, to read an old, Dashiell Hammett novel or a Philip Raymond Chandler novel or a Mark Allen novel.
Yes.
No, they don't do that. And that just appalls me. It also makes me fear for the future. It makes me fear what my grandchildren and great grandchildren are going to have to cope with. What kind of society are they going to have to survive in? You know?
It's trust me, Mark, it is scary. But that's why I mean, with that's why listen, I wish that Amazon would give me a sponsor because I praise Kindle Unlimited every time I'm an author because there's so many authors that I have that I'm a huge fan of that I wouldn't have been fans of, or I wouldn't even know who the hell they were if it wasn't for Kindle Unlimited. Because it gave me the option to read new things that I wouldn't and be like, oh my goodness, I love this author's work. And now I start looking at their other books, and then that's when I start buying the physical copies of their book.
Yeah.
Kindle Unlimited is an amazing thing if you necessarily don't want to buy all, you know what I mean? You don't know
Yeah.
author and you want to sample new things, and it's amazing. And
It's
at the
amazing.
end of the day, even if you read a couple pages, the author still gets paid
They still
something.
get paid. The authors get paid for every page that's turned. So if you're looking at page 1, they get paid for that. When you turn to page 2, they automatically are going to get paid for that too. Whether you finish reading it or not is irrelevant
Hmm.
because it's a per page thing. And the way it works out, if someone reads one of my novels on Kindle Unlimited, my royalty is about the same as my royalty for a Kindle download.
Wow.
Now, I'll tell you where I sell my paperbacks. Is
Yes.
when I go to book
Convention.
fairs, county fairs, state fairs. When I go to conventions like Crypticon Seattle and stuff like that. When I start going to conventions, uh, especially when you go to horror conventions like Crypticon
Hmm.
or HorrorCon, which just wrapped up this past weekend. I was not able to attend for a whole lot of reasons, but there's always next year.
Yes.
But man, those are my people.
I
And
buy so many books at horror. I go to a lot of horror conventions each year, and
yeah,
I get a lot of books, and I meet a lot of new authors. that I get to interview and read his stuff. So I mean, it's a win-win.
There's an author that I met. I'd known him online, and I got to meet him in real life at Crypticon. A fellow by the name of Eric Butler.
Okay.
Okay. Great guy, real friendly, gregarious, knows how to work the public when they're there. He's active on the convention circuit, and he's a good writer too. In fact, you might want to think about reaching out to him and feeling him out to see if he might be a good guest for your show.
Most definitely.
But yeah, horror people are some of the best people on earth, man. And horror fans, they are some of the most loyal fans you can ever have. They will support you both morally and financially when no one else will.
Yes.
I got to meet two of my cinematic icons when I was there. I got to meet Doug Bradley.
Nice guy. I met him. Yep, I met him. Nice guy.
Yes, incredibly charming. Got that British accent going.
Yes.
Incredibly charming fellow. Another guy that I met that I actually got to talk to for about 15, 20 minutes, Andrew Divoff. He played the Jinn. He played the Jinn in the Wishmaster movies.
Yes, yes.
And done a lot of character work on television. He's done all kinds of genre films. Incredibly gifted actor. Really, really, really warm and friendly guy. I got nothing but good things to say about both men.
And that's the same way because I go to a lot of horror conventions throughout the year, and there's only been like one or two times that I've had a bad experience with like people in the Western Claw, and I'll tell you off camera who they are. But everyone else has been nothing but pleasant. All right, listen, Andrew, you're not gonna I can talk to you all night, man. But it's almost midnight here. Yes. Listen, everyone, bye. Get your asses over to Amazon. Kindle Unlimited. Kindle. Grab a physical media of Alpha Male, and also follow Mark on social media. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to another edition of the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's my man, Mark Allen. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Good night.